and Grok and you had discussed, doesn't this nationalize elections and take away the power from the state? And I would say yes, but we have already somewhat nationalized it when we had the 14th and 15th and 19th, 24th, and 26th amendments added, right? I made a list of, made sure I got the right ones. When
Correct.
we allowed African Americans to vote, we ensured that women could vote. They lowered the age for men or to vote
First
at
of all,
18.
yeah, it's not African American, it's people who were formerly slaves. It didn't say African American there. It
Well,
is
I never, I'm sorry, I'm trying to stick to the politically correct words. Um, right, but slaves. That was his original intent.
yeah.
But the point is, it was federal amendments to the Constitution, and it was across the nation, right? So we already have some amount of nationalization going on with those amendments. Um, requiring a citizen, requiring you to show proof of citizenship. Um,
It's maybe the
well,
last nail in the coffin is what you're really saying. Yeah, I agree. All of that was nationalizing it. Um, and one of my points is way back when, nowadays women and people of color are told if it weren't for this, if it weren't for the Civil War and the amendments that were passed pretty much under duress after the Civil War, because half the states didn't actually agree to it. It was uh, if it weren't for all that, you wouldn't have any rights. But the fact is that when it went state by state in New Jersey for a certain period of time, um, it was, you know, men of color could vote. They just didn't, they had to be free. And women could vote, but they had to be unmarried, because when they were married, they were under the state of coverture, and their husband was
sure.
supposed to take care of everything. Um, and also, even white men didn't get to vote if they were in debt. Okay. So they had to show that they owned a certain amount of, that they had a positive net worth. They
Right,
didn't have to be rich, not at all, but they
right.
shouldn't be in debt. And the reason for that is so that they wouldn't want to devalue the currency, because anybody who's in debt stands to gain from, the money supply losing its value.
We are free to give speeches, fly banners, beat drums. When we hold a meeting, well, nobody comes. We are free in this land to rise up and rebel. And our books are not banned, they simply don't sell.
Hello, Kathy. How are you?
Hello, Aya. I'm well, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing well. I don't know if you followed it, but I've had some discussions with Grok, of all people, about the SAVE Act and in general about voting rights. And oh, I think I see Maisie over there, right, right behind you.
Yes. She- Come on, girl, you can come in.
She's so sweet. Um,
Thanks.
So I don't know if you saw, but also on Facebook, there were some comments by various people. And one of the commenters is somebody who wants to limit universal suffrage altogether. I mean, even for American citizens. So he wanted to add some things like a civics exam and military service. And I've forgotten what all else, but there were a few things.
I
Okay,
did see that. Yes, I thought it was interesting.
yeah. So, what is your reaction to the SAVE Act? What do you think about it? Let's start there.
Okay. So I saw all the big hullabaloo on X about, yeah, we want to get the SAVE Act passed. And I thought, well, I don't know what this is all about because I've heard about all the angst over illegal aliens voting. But like you, I'd always heard it was such a small problem. Um, so I watched your video interview with Grok, and I thought that was an interesting premise that you were, or perspective that you were coming from. Um, I may disagree with it a little bit.
I
Uh,
expect nothing less.
good. Um, I have a lot of mixed feelings over the SAVE Act though, because like you had expressed your concern about government overreach into and imposing themselves on states' rights. However, um, the federal government has control over immigration, right? I mean, we can agree on that.
Yes.
And the states have really, well, in particular, 14 states have abused that and ignored the federal government's control over that. Um, I can see a reason why to have the SAVE Act. Um, but like you, I have concerns about it as well. I think something like that should be implemented, but I think they should take a look at their very stringent requirements for proving citizenship.
Yeah, so just so you know, I do have a passport, and if it came to that, I will have no problem. But that's because I'm a paranoid person. I know that I can't, I can't prove citizenship any other way. I do have a certificate of naturalization. I'm not allowed to make a photocopy of it. Therefore, if anything were to happen to it, well, I would feel very lost. Um,
Sure.
so I make sure, even though I have no plans of leaving the country, anytime in the near future, I have to stay home and take care of Bo, and he can't travel. So uh, I do have an American passport always, always. I don't allow myself to not have one, and that costs money. You know,
Sure. I know. I got one. I have one too.
Yeah, and I got one for my daughter. I helped pay for it because I wanted that if she had an opportunity to travel, that she would be able to. But I know that there are a lot of people who are American who are, that's a really big expenditure for them.
Sure.
And and then there are the women who get married and change their name, and so just their birth certificate, if they are born in the United States, is not going to be enough. Um, so they're going to have some kind of really specialized identity document. And I feel really, I don't want to be in one of those countries where you're constantly being asked to show your papers. Um,
No, but I think so. So here in Missouri, you already have to show a voting card, right? And
oh
you have
yeah,
to show ID. Um, so I don't. Let's break this down. One is the stringent requirements for proving you're a citizen, right? They're requiring, I believe, a birth certificate and either a passport or what? Um,
well, you see, a birth certificate does not have photo ID on it. So it's not enough to have a birth certificate, just
right.
actually, and so they would have to have a birth certificate plus a photo ID, and it will have to be of a certain level. And currently, they're saying that just a regular driver's license, I believe, is not good enough. Your driver's license is not proof of citizenship,
Right.
and, and your birth certificate has no ID built into it. I mean, no picture. I mean, even if it did have a picture, you would have changed considerably from the day of your birth. And then there are all sorts of people who change their names, or you know, Um,
But
so,
but changing your name, you could present a marriage certificate, right? I mean,
well, again,
basically,
the marriage certificate is not an ID. So you would have to have your birth certificate, then your marriage certificate, and
right,
then a photo ID, and
right.
and the photo ID might have to be quite a bit more than just a driver's license.
Um, I think if I recall correct, and I should have read up more on this, but I think the combination. So let's go back to the requirements for a passport. The requirements to get a passport that validates you as a citizen are your birth certificate, your marriage licenses or divorce decrees showing your name changes, as well as uh, a uh, bill or whatever document that shows your current residence on it, right? Like a utility bill or something like that.
No, 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 that's not true.
Not
Even
for a passport. I don't
no.
remember what I presented for a
Okay,
passport, but
yeah,
I had a
even
whole
stuff is
folder of stuff.
different. Okay.
No,
Uh,
I know, but
yeah,
what I'm leading up to here is that if you can use a passport to verify that you're a U.S. citizen, all of the documents required up to get a passport should be allowed to allow you to vote as well. That's where I was trying to go with that,
I understand, but that
supporting that. Um,
when you go for the first time to get your passport, and of course, the first passport that I got was way, way back when I was a child. You have to show your certificate of naturalization, not a copy,
oh,
but
for
the
you,
original.
yeah,
Yes.
for you,
So,
yes.
and I imagine, I don't know how it is for somebody who was born in the US, you don't just get to show your birth certificate, but you also have to go in there and explain that you are that person in the birth certificate, because how would they know?
Well, sure, you have to show that trail. As a woman,
No, no, no. Even as any person, let's say there's a guy, he's 7 foot tall, and he was born in the United States. He's got a birth certificate, and there's a little kitty. There's a little footprint on it that's really cute. He goes into the office, whatever office he goes to get his very first passport. I'm sure it's not enough to say, look, I was a really cute baby, and this is my footprint. And how do they know it's him?
no,
You know
I
what
get
I'm
your
saying?
point. I get your point. But
Um, so I'll
we
tell
had
you what I had to do. I had to go in there with my certificate of naturalization. And of course, it was a picture of me when I was, what, 12? That it did have a picture. And I went with my parents, and um, we sorted it out, and we swore that this was me, and not somebody else. And so
sure.
ultimately, that's what all of this is based on, that you get somebody in that office to believe it's true, that you are the person in the birth certificate. If somebody were to lie about that, you know, I don't think many people do, but if somebody were to go in with a birth certificate, let's say of a child who died or whatever, or just any, and he's not that person, um, how would they know?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. But back to the SAVE Act, I would like to talk about why we think they're doing it. Because as you stated, the SAVE Act or the number of illegal aliens that are known to be voting illegally is less than, what was it, 0.04%, right? Is what I think you said in your interview.
Yeah,
Okay. So very small. But wouldn't you say that that's we know right now?
I agree. And
I
I
agree.
think I
Okay.
agree with you on that. That was
Okay.
it was actually Rock who was pushing that point, not
Uh,
me.
okay. So it's a very small number, but that is what we know. Here's the problem. There are 14 states currently that don't require voter ID. There are 14 states that also have sanctuary cities
Mhm.
right now.
That's the problem. That is the real
Right.
problem. Yeah,
And the third part of the problem is there have been, and the estimates vary, anywhere from 15 million to 30 million illegal aliens have come into this country illegally, right?
yeah.
And the majority of them are what? They're ending up in these 14 states. Um, and these 14 states have sanctuary cities. And I got to tell you, um, how would they ever do an audit and know exactly in those 14 states how many illegal aliens voted if they don't know who they are, if they're not requiring voter ID?
They are the ones who, let's even leave those illegal immigrants out of it. It's those states that want to take apart the system, that
Right,
want everything to fall apart. And
right.
the problem is that if we're going to send in an army into those states, um, the army that goes to fight should fight against the legislators of those states, the
I
governors
agree.
of those states, not some guy who's, working in a car wash. That you understand what I'm saying? It's just
I do.
really bad publicity for our side that doesn't want the illegal immigrants here. It is just
Right.
making things awful, and it's leading to what is going to be a civil war. Is That's what it
I, I absolutely agree with you. And and here's why I would like to go a little bit further about those 14 states. And because of the way those 14 states are behaving, sanctuary cities, no voter ID, gerrymandering of the districts, et cetera, is why I think the SAVE Act has been such a popular item right now.
is.
And I hear you about not allowing illegal aliens to vote in the federal elections. I'm going to put aside the fact for a moment that they're illegal. Why should they have any rights to vote in any elections, including the local? But we'll get into that. But I think the SAVE Act has come out to address these 14 states that are just rogue entities, um, because of the fact that the margins are so thin now with Congress and the Senate, and the votes or the representatives that are being sent into those houses, um, that the federal government is trying to lock down the elections even further so that there can be no whatever it is, illegal aliens or gerrymandering of the districts. I mean, look at the way that they're doing the censuses right now in those 14 states as well. Um, so that's just my opinion why the SAVE Act is so popular right now.
Residents. They should not be voting in federal elections. Absolutely not. But if they are legally in the country, they've got a green card or whatever, they're working, they're paying taxes, they are paying local taxes, um, then it stands to reason that if the local government, whichever it is, the county or the city or whatever, wants to allow them to vote and they are legal residents, I think it would be okay. I never said it was okay for illegal residents to. I'm just
Okay,
saying,
I'm glad because I misunderstood you. Okay, I
no,
am so
no, no,
glad.
no, no. It's just it's a process. Becoming an American is a process. And first you come in legally, and then you work, and then you go through the whole process, and you have different rights at different, steps in the process.
Okay, so what you're saying is if you came in legally, and even if you have a green card, you should be able to. She's, it's her bedtime almost.
I understand. She's so cute.
Thanks. Um, anyway, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I thought you were implying that illegals should be able to vote in local
Oh,
elections.
no,
Oh,
illegal
thank
shit.
goodness. Okay, good. Okay, good. Um, because I actually went and looked this up because I was wondering about the differences in the federal elections and the local elections.
Uh-huh.
And local elections, and I'm sure you know this, but I'm going to state it for the audience purpose anyway. Local elections include the mayor, the city councilman, but it also, the biggest office that I see as a problem is sheriffs. And if you have illegals voting in your local elections for a sheriff, that's bad. Now, here's the interesting part though. There is a federal statute, USC 18611, something like that. I'll have to look it up again. It actually says that, yeah, illegals cannot vote in federal elections. However, if the state wants to allow it, they can allow illegals to vote in their local elections.
Can it be illegal?
Yeah, I was shocked when I found this out. All right, let me see if I found it on
Are you sure
all
it's
right.
legal residents who are not citizens?
All right, here is all right, let me read, see if I can find it, what it says here. It's the statute. Okay, statute 18, USC is a cat, and I don't know what the symbol is, 611. Voting,
Probably
can I read
something.
it to you?
Sure.
Okay. Titled Voting by Aliens is a federal criminal statute that prohibits non-citizens, referred to as aliens in the law, from voting in certain elections. It makes it unlawful for non-citizens to vote in federal elections is bolded, or mixed elections that include federal candidates, with limited exceptions. Here's what it says. It shall be unlawful for any alien to vote in any election held solely or in part for the purpose of electing a candidate for the office of president, vice president, presidential elector, member of the Senate, member of the House of Representatives, delegate from the District of Columbia, or resident commissioner, unless the election is held partly for some other purpose. Aliens are authorized to vote for some other purpose under a state constitution or statute or local ordinance, and voting for such other purpose is conducted independently of voting for a candidate for such federal offices in such a manner that an alien has the opportunity to vote for such other purpose. Let's see, it goes on here. It talks about them being fined, et cetera, et cetera.
But Kathy, it says
All right, so here's what
it
here's
doesn't
where it,
say illegal. That's just alien.
um, well, you're right. It's non-citizens. It criminalizes voting by non-citizens.
Yes, in
Okay,
federal
okay,
elections.
you make the point. I'm sorry, you make the point correctly. It doesn't say illegal alien, it just says non-citizens. But wouldn't non-citizens, I'm
No,
sorry?
so aliens are anybody who isn't a citizen. That includes green card holders and others, people with a student visa. All of these people are not illegal aliens. They are just aliens. And then of course, they're not allowed to vote in federal elections because those are only for citizens. Now, with
Okay,
regard to non-federal elections, the local government gets to decide yes or no.
right. But couldn't you broadly define a non-citizen? Because here's the relevant paragraph that I was referring to. The law allows limited non-citizen voting in purely local or state-only elections if
Mhm.
state or local law authorizes it and the ballot setup prevents access to federal races.
So there might be a mixed ballot that has some federal issues, and they really should not be voting on the federal issues. But it does not say anywhere in that law that it's okay for an illegal alien to do that. That's just people who are not citizens. Okay.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
But it is a little bit surprising that it says a non-citizen could be allowed to vote.
Well, in a local election, it's not, because this is the genius of the American government system. We do have different levels of government, and they have different rules, and they get to govern themselves.
Sure.
So, I favor that the local government should decide. So, if in our county we decide we don't want legal residents who are not citizens to vote in our county election, then they don't get to vote. If everybody in the county, or a majority in the county, or whatever, decide that it's okay, because we're just talking about property taxes, and let's say if they are residents and they own property and they have to pay property taxes, then they should be able to vote on property taxes. Not anything to do with the federal government or anything that, I favor that. I think that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not talking about anybody who's a criminal or an illegal alien. I'm talking about, law-abiding people who
Mm-hmm.
are living among us. It's the alien among us, and who may one day become citizens, but they're not right now.
Okay, you're talking about that in-between class of immigrants to this country.
Mhm.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could agree with that. And green card holder, I mean, what would be those types of people? Green card holders, right? Naturalization, naturalized.
Well, they're not naturalized yet. They're waiting to get to the
Oh,
point where they can be
okay, right.
naturalized. So
They've
once they're
applied.
they well, yes, they've applied. That's why they're a green card holder. But there
Okay.
are other situations. Okay, so what other kind of legal non-citizens are there? Well, there are people on student visas. Okay. Um, Now, what should they be allowed to vote on? I don't know, student council, something to do with what they're involved with. Okay. I'm not saying they should vote about things that are beyond them. Obviously, if it's just a student, they don't own any property, they don't pay any property taxes. No, they should not vote in the local election. But if there's something on campus, that all the students are voting about, and they're paying tuition,
Right.
yeah, they should get to vote on that. So
Sure.
that's all I'm
But
saying, is it's whatever you're actually involved in and have skin in the game. Now, then what happened is, while I was discussing that on Facebook, somebody came in and said, you know what? We should even make it very hard for citizens, even if they are citizens, to vote. If they haven't done military service or passed a civics exam or all sorts of things like that. So, what do you think about that?
well, I may be becoming a very unpopular person here, Aya. I don't I don't okay, so I think there could be different levels of people allowed to vote. Um, I have to say, I think there are some very uneducated people that are voting.
Oh, that's
Um,
true. That's true.
I think I think when they lowered the age from 21 to vote to be able to vote to 18, I thought that was a mistake. One of my grandsons is 18 years old, and I've talked to him, and honey, I don't want him voting yet.
Oh, yeah, but if somebody is serving in the military, if they're old enough to be drafted, um, does it make sense that they wouldn't get to vote?
I know. You're right. They're drafted at 18. I mean, and we have drinking laws that don't allow them to drink alcohol until they're 21. But anyway, that's another.
Yeah.
Um, but anyway, yeah, I mean, there are really a lot of people that I don't think should be voting, and I don't know if they are voting, but
Hey,
you know, pass a civics exam or something like that. I don't know. I don't know that I could pass a civics exam right now, but um,
and I worked in Taiwan. And, you might say I came in illegally because I misunderstood the law. So, I mean, I was given a job offer, okay, and I showed
Yeah.
up, and I thought, well, we're at peace with Taiwan, so I'll just come in. And it turned out that I came in the wrong way. But instead of putting me in, detention or something like that, they said, that's okay. We'll sponsor you to go. I had to go all the way to Hong Kong, which at the time was still, anyway. And I had to go to a passport office there, and I got the visa that I was supposed to have, and I came in. And so they were very lenient with me. Also, I spent the first 3 months going from government office to government office, getting all the right stuff. I had an alien resident certificate for myself. And later on, when my daughter was born, I had one for her. And I brought my mother, and I told them that my mother was going to come with me. And they said, oh, okay, she's your dependent. And it was really funny because she was a lot wealthier than me. She wasn't my dependent, but she was there to help me with the baby. And so that they were very nice, and they gave her a visa even though she wasn't working.
Wow.
She was just taking care of my baby. Um, so they were kind to me in many ways. I made a lot of mistakes. I didn't know what I was doing, but it was also a hassle. There were all these documents, and I remember, I was tired, and I was at home with the baby on the weekend, and a government official was knocking at the door, and he wanted to
Oh,
check that I really lived there, because on my little alien resident certificate, it said that I lived there. And I was shocked. I wasn't dressed for company. I was just, uh, anyway, they arranged for me to go down to the guardhouse, and so he had to interview me about, am I really the person that I said I was, and what was my education? And there I was with my little baby, and okay, so later, I told my colleagues at the university about what happened, and I said, "Well, I guess I deserve that because I'm an alien." And they said, "Oh, no, 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 Aya, that's not just you. They do that to us too."
oh, wow.
Okay, so then
Wow.
I thought to myself, "Well, I'm so lucky to be an American, because in America we don't do that."
Do that, right.
Okay, so I do not want for there to be a law where they go door to door to check everybody's ID, just so that they can find the illegal aliens. I don't want it to turn into that kind of country.
No, I don't either. But I think, um, yeah, I don't know. I'm sorry. I gotta put her down. She wants in her bed. Um, no, I don't either, and I don't think we've reached that point yet. But I would say that part, if you're referring to the ICE invasions and things like that, yeah, I hope that they're not doing that. I understand that they're not doing that yet. I understand that where they are breaking into people's houses, they have a federal warrant. I don't know if that's true 100%, whatever. But back to the SAVE Act, I don't see that that would open the door for that and knocking at each
No, no,
everybody's door
I
looking
went
for
far
papers.
afield. You're right.
Okay, okay,
That
okay.
wasn't my argument, but I think ultimately any kind of ID requires at some point for somebody to swear, yes, I am the person in this document, so you give me this document. And
Right.
um, so,
So you
yeah,
Right. You had mentioned in your video, and Grok and you had discussed, doesn't this nationalize elections and take away the power from the state? And I would say yes, but we have already somewhat nationalized it when we had the 14th and 15th and 19th, 24th, and 26th Amendments added, right? I made sure I got the right ones. When
correct.
we allowed African Americans to vote, we ensured that women could vote. They lowered the age for men or to vote
First
at
of all,
18.
yeah, it's not African American, it's people who were formerly slaves. It didn't say African American there. It
Well,
is
I yeah, I never. I'm sorry, I'm trying to stick to the politically correct words. Um, right, but slaves. That was its original intent.
Yeah,
But the point is, it was federal amendments to the Constitution, and it was across the nation, right? So we already have some amount of nationalization going on with those amendments. Um, requiring a citizen, requiring you to show proof of citizenship. Um,
it's maybe the
well,
last nail in the coffin, is what you're really saying. Yeah, I agree. All of that was nationalizing it. Um, and one of my points is way back when, nowadays, women and people of color are told if it weren't for this, if it weren't for the Civil War and the amendments that were passed pretty much under duress after the Civil War, because, half the states didn't actually agree to it. It was, uh, if it weren't for all that, you wouldn't have any rights. But the fact is that when it went state by state, in New Jersey for a certain period of time, um, it was, you know, men of color could vote. They just didn't, they had to be free. And women could vote, but they had to be unmarried, because when they were married, they were under the state of coverture and their husband was
sure.
supposed to take care of everything. And also, even white men didn't get to vote if they were in debt. Okay. So they had to show that they owned a certain amount of, that they had a positive net worth. They
Right,
didn't have to be rich, not at all, but they
right,
shouldn't be in debt. And the reason for that is so that they wouldn't want to devalue the currency, because anybody who's in debt stands to gain from, the money supply losing its value.
right,
And I think that's pretty wonderful, that they had that. And I
right.
would love to go back to that. Um,
Oh, yeah.
um,
Um, yeah, I find it kind of interesting, the way we used to think about voting, compared to the way it is now. I mean, now I gotta tell you, it feels like a free-for-all. Just, the ballots that go missing, the ballots that are found 2 weeks later, these 14 states that have no voter ID. Um, so so back to the SAVE Act. Um, when they see these, by the way, I looked up some of these lost seats, for example, by these Congress people that were running for office. And for example, there were three in California, a sanctuary, um, non-voter ID. One Republican lost his seat by 187 votes. Now, was it because illegal aliens voted? We'll never know. Another Republican lost her seat by 653 votes. The most well-renowned one was Al Franken in Minnesota. He won by 312 votes when he ran for senator. And guess who was number 60, the 60th vote on the Affordable Care Act? It was Al Franken. Minnesota is also one of those 14 states, by the way. Um, so there were a lot of examples that I looked up that where there were really close, and of course, Gore v. Bush, 537 votes or something like that difference. I think the federal government's looking at this and saying, why not eliminate the risk if there are illegal aliens voting in those particular districts that are keeping those people out of the House and the correct representation for those people, for the citizens of that county or that whatever it is.
the thing is,
So I'm really mixed on the SAVE Act.
will make things a lot harder for Americans of a certain financial category to be able to vote. But if there are, and I think it's actually the liberals, the Democrats who are behind all of this. If they want to forge some documents to allow illegals to vote, I don't think nobody's going to stop them. And that's what I hate about bureaucracy.
Oh, I absolutely agree. They will always find a way around it. But instead of throwing out the whole thing and say, okay, we just won't do it because it'll make people hard, make it too hard for citizens like you and I to go and vote, why not just or not implement the bill as it is, but change the requirements within the bill, make it more flexible, make it easier for someone to get their proof of citizenship, however you do it, whatever the requirements are for proving that. In California, they're issuing driver's licenses to illegal aliens. I don't know if you've heard about all the various crashes and stuff, so I don't think driver's license is a good
No,
verification either. Right.
I think the whole idea, and a lot of the times when the liberals are fighting on the other side, or when people are saying, "Oh, everybody knows how to get a driver's license," are you saying that somebody who's an illegal alien doesn't know how to get one? Well, no, I'm not saying that at all. They can.
They obviously can. There have been so many crashes recently from these truck drivers that turns out they were illegal aliens. And it's not just from Mexico either. We're talking about Sikhs and Indians and all these various people from a lot of various other countries that are getting driver's licenses. And it really annoys me because I let my license expire for a year. I was devastated to realize that I would have to go through everything all over again, including bringing in my paperwork. I had to bring my passport in to get my real ID, so that I wouldn't have to do all the other stuff with the marriage certificate and all the other stuff. But anyway, it amazes me of how easy it is for people to get driver's licenses that are totally illegal.
Somebody will manage to get it illegally. So
Yeah,
what I mentioned was maybe prove that you're paying taxes. And it's not that I'm a big fan of income tax. I would love to do away with the income tax, but while we have it, maybe use that as your proof. Because if you really are paying the income tax, maybe you should be allowed to vote in the election. Whereas if you're not, if you're on welfare, maybe you shouldn't.
right.
Anyway,
Yeah, it's a tough one. They've really yeah, it's a shame that the federal government has to step in and put in laws because these 14 states, in my opinion, it's the 14 states and the way they're misbehaving. Nevada is one of those 14 states. Hey, here's an interesting factoid that I found out while I was doing some research on the SAVE Act. Did you know that Arizona, New Hampshire, Wyoming, and Louisiana already require proof of citizenship to vote?
no, I didn't know, but that's great.
Yeah, I was shocked. I was surprised that that's already happening in those four states.
That does not federalize it.
Right. Yeah, exactly. But those 14 states that are out there rogue, they just won't do it. You know? But I agree with you. If the states would all do it and all adhere to the federal law anyway about illegal immigration, but they've thumbed their nose in recent years and established sanctuary cities. Um,
I don't know if you're familiar with the Swiss system of the cantons.
no, I'm
Um,
not.
so there, uh, Switzerland is kind of a, a federation rather than, and so there are different cantons. And if you, uh, let's say you get a job there, right? An employer invites you to work there. They have to ask the local people if it's okay for you to live there or be a citizen, or a vote in local elections. So this is a system that kind of makes sense. And if you actually wanted to vouch for someone, an alien coming in, and you'd say, well, if he does something wrong, I'll pay for it, and so on and so forth. If we had a system like that, then maybe a state like Minnesota could bring in more aliens, but they would have to take responsibility for those people. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I don't know that I would trust anything to Minnesota right now, but I get your point.
Right. So I think we agree on more than we disagree on here.
I agree. I'm glad we had this discussion tonight. I'm very glad we had this discussion because I totally misunderstood your video. I got a lot of the points, but I missed a very important one. So thank you for having me tonight.
And hopefully we can do it again.
Excellent. I'll be happy to. Thank you so much, Aya, for having me again.
The phone is not humbug, and the walls have no ears. And I hate to admit that despite all our fears, we don't seem to have made a single blacklist, for no one at all even knows we exist. We are free to give speeches, fly banners, beat drums. When we hold a meeting, well, nobody comes. We are free in this land to rise up and rebel, and our books are not banned, they simply don't sell. The Eastern Bloc countries are fairer by far. There you may not speak freely, whoever you are, but our highest court has a ruling that stranger don't need to impede speech that poses no danger. We are not tormented, harassed or beset. I think it's because no one's noticed us yet. They merely ignore us, the worst cut of all. The walls have no ears, yet we speak to the walls. Though we are free to give speeches, fly banners, beat drums. When we hold a meeting, well, nobody comes. We are free in this land to rise up and rebel, and our books are not banned, they simply don't sell. The Eastern Bloc countries are fairer by far. There you may not speak freely, whoever you are, but our highest court has a ruling that's stranger. No need to impede speech that poses no danger. We are not tormented, harassed or beset. I think it's because no